I welcome you back in another session in our series on familiarizing you with the basic concepts of NLSAT, and in today's session we are going to discuss time management tools for part A. This is hands down one of the most important sessions that you can perhaps watch anywhere on internet about NLSAT, because the paper, while tends to be usually on easy to moderate side, if anything that makes this paper difficult is its time management, because the paper is fairly lengthy, and that's why how you manage your time becomes the most key differentiating factors. If you're able to manage your time well, you'll have a great paper, and if you're not able to manage your time well, then even a seemingly easy paper can look very difficult. So in today's session, I'm going to very briefly cover for you how to focus on time management strategies and what are the things you should keep in mind. Also, this session is mostly for time management for part A, so we'll discuss how to manage your time in part B in some other session. Now, first let's just start with some basic advisory tips that you need to keep in mind when you're thinking about time management. Try to finish your part A in within about 60 minutes. The reason I've put this number is because, of course, some of you might even take 70 minutes to finish your part A, and sometimes when you're doing your mock tests, you might even go up till 80 minutes. But overall, when the exam is coming close, you should be able to roughly finish your part A in, if you're trying to aim for an ideal limit, then that ideal limit should be somewhere around this mark. You can maybe go till 65 minutes, or in some cases, if the paper really demands, if it's a lengthy paper, because you need to be flexible as well. If part A tends to be very difficult, so this year a lot of students did discuss with me that the part A was exceptionally lengthy, so maybe this could even go up till 70 minutes. But this is roughly where you should try to focus on, because in your mock tests, you should make a point to finish your part A in totality in about this mark. On an average, try to stick within this limit itself. So this is, if many of you who ask how long should we take to finish the part A, then this is the number I would recommend. This is sufficient enough time to maintain accuracy and also finish on time. The problem that many students now face is that sometimes they feel that if they take only, let's say, about 60 minutes to finish part A and they score about 50 marks out of 75, if they were to take, let's say, 75 minutes instead of 60 minutes, then they may be scoring more marks. Maybe they are scoring about 55 or 60 marks. So then it becomes a challenge of how to find that sweet spot where you're also not taking too long, but you're also scoring the maximum marks. And I think based on my experience of teaching students and also have given this paper, I think in and about 60 to 70 minutes, somewhere in between that, you should try to focus on. The upper mark of 70 minutes is only if the paper is difficult. In those cases, maybe you can go up till that mark, but generally try to stick between these two numbers. That's the ideal limit, because it also leaves you with ample time to finish part B. Keep in mind, if the paper is very difficult, which can very well happen in, let's say, if you're watching this video somewhere 2 years down the line, and the paper or the standard of the paper has got more difficult, it's okay to take slightly more time because the part A is more important. Do not sacrifice your part A thinking that I will finish it in as little time as possible. These are the timings that I'm suggesting to you when you're practicing for part A. You're giving your mock tests or any practice module as such. But in reality, if the paper is actually difficult, I think it's okay to give yourself some time, because part A tends to have more competition. It'll have more people who are sitting for it. Hence, the more the marks you score in part A, the better it is for you, because part B generally tends to have lesser competition. About 600 people will have their sheets assessed for part B. So if the situation demands, if it's exceedingly difficult paper, then it's okay to somewhere go till the maximum mark of 70 minutes. But generally, this is what you should try to aim at. I hope this answers any doubts and queries you had in your mind about how much time can I take, and what if it's a difficult paper, then how much time can I take. Second is designate timestamps for completing various stages of the exam. This is equally important. It's very easy to put a overall time limit that I'll finish my part in, let's say, 65 minutes. But that is not sufficient. This is especially for those people who struggle with that internal self-discipline, which is that you should know that if there are 8 passages in the paper, then I should be done with 2 passages, let's say, within at least about 15 minutes, let's say. So that way, it's also important to regulate your time within the part A itself. So do not just put a final overall time limit that I'll finish my part A in 65 minutes. Also see that I'll finish 2 passages, let's say, in 15 minutes. Because that way you will know exactly if you are going well with the time. If you leave it for the end to see how well I've done, then maybe you'll realize that 65 minutes are over and you're only done with 6 passages. That will set in the panic and stress. So that's why I also put mini timestamps and also micromanage your time. So that micromanagement is very important. The second thing is there is net negative marking, so do not overthink. Majority of the people waste time in the paper for a variety of reasons. I'll discuss this in quite a bit. But since there is net negative, if you attempt a question and you get it wrong, you lose a mark. If you do not attempt a question because you feel you'll not get it right, you still lose a mark, because in this paper, even if you have left a question unattempted, you lose a mark for that. So there is no point in overthinking. Attempt a question if you are sufficiently confident this is the answer. Do not wait for the full certainty that I know for a fact this is the answer. It's unlikely going to help you. This is very important. You should be smart enough to know or to gauge when a question needs to be skipped. The reason I'm saying this is because each and every question comes with its own set of difficulties. And you must know precisely at what point a question has become too time consuming for you. So when you practice in your mock test, one thing you will repeatedly see is that some questions tend to suck up a lot of time. And if that's happening, it does 2 things to you. One, if it's taking too long, it'll panic you. You'll feel that I have taken too long in this question, it's wasting my time. So you tend to panic more, and that means the odds of you getting it right anyway reduces. Second, you also feel that you've wasted too much time, so it disturbs your overall time management for other questions as well. That's why if you know exactly that if I've spent, let's say, 30 seconds or a minute on a question and I still am not able to figure out its answer, skip that question and move on to the next one. Because when you do that, you will not only be able to save that time that you would have wasted on that one single question, you would have also made sure that you do not lose your confidence. Because all these competitive exams boil down to that idea of confidence and how well you're able to preserve it. So if you spend too long at a question and you're not able to gauge the right answer, save it, come to it at the end of it. Do not get stuck on it. Do not take it as an ego battle that I need to attempt this question come what may. So that's why you should have that idea of when to skip a question. And as I said, always time yourself. Keep a time watch next to you at all times. This is the component of time subsidization, which is very important. Now, basically what time subsidization means for you is that not all questions deserve equal time in the exam. Save time on easy questions where you can and allocate that time to questions where you need more time. Let's tell you how to do this in practice. You start reading a passage number 1. You come to the question number 5 and you feel that this question number 5 is too difficult. So let's say you spent about 30 seconds on it and you're unsure of the answer. If you're unsure of the answer, now you feel that if I spent another minute on it, maybe I could get the answer. Avoid this temptation. What you instead need to do is that if you feel that this question is too difficult, move on to the next one. Maybe the next question is easy, because every exam has a certain pattern to it. What I mean by that is that let's say there are about roughly in every passage there are 9 to 10 questions. Out of these 9 to 10 questions, 2 to 3 will be very easy. Another 3 to 4 will be somewhere of medium difficulty, and the rest will be slightly, which is I think 1 or 2 questions which will maybe slightly difficult. What happens is that these questions which I have highlighted as rest, they can be the ones which take up the most of your time. And as a result, because of these difficult questions, you also lose your time to attempt these easy and medium difficulty questions. This is the central reason why most people struggle with time management in the paper. Because some of the questions take up too much of your time, which also disturbs your time management for the easy ones and for the medium difficulty ones. So what I would suggest is that if you feel that any question is taking too much of your time, skip it, move on to these questions which are easy and which are of medium difficulty, which you can attempt in a reasonable amount of time. Once you do that, you will sufficiently be able to save your time, but will also ensure that it doesn't lower your confidence. So that's why it's very important that you recognize that not all questions should be given in equal amount of time. If you see an easy question, try to minimize your time in these kind of questions. Do not take more than, let's say, 10 to 30 seconds to attempt these kind of questions. What happens is that if students see an easy question, they tend to think that, okay, this one is an easy, let me take as much time to fully know what the right answer is. If it's an easy question, do not take more than 10-20 seconds, okay? So that's why it's important. On easier questions, try to minimize your time as much as you can. Then the questions which are slightly more difficult than the easy ones, again, try to see how you can reduce your time on those questions as well. And then you, overall, whatever time you save, you can allocate the time to attempt these difficult ones, which tend to cause more difficulties for the students. So that's why the concept of time subsidization is so crucial. Maximizing your marks with easy questions while saving time. Because easy questions certainly are there in the paper, but students tend to miss them out, maybe because they're too stuck on the difficult ones, or maybe because they did not manage their time well. And then minimize the damage in difficult question by allocating them extra time. So this is the strategy that you need to follow. In the exam, be very cautious of this, that I want to pick up as many easy questions as I can. Think of it like a tree. When you look at a tree, this is if you're looking at a tree, you'll always go for the low-hanging fruits first, because these are the easiest one to pick. Easy questions are just like that. Go for the low-hanging fruits first, then you go for the fruits which are hanging slightly above it, and then you go for the fruits which are at the top of the tree. You never start by picking the fruits at the top of the tree, because if you start by picking these top ones, and if you fail to do so, you might have also lost the time to pick the low-hanging ones. So think of it like this. Pick the low-hanging fruits first, try to save time while picking them, and then move above. That is the order that we must follow when we are attempting these questions. It's all well and good if you can attempt a difficult question, because maybe you have practiced enough, maybe you are smart enough to do that, so in which case you should go with your ideal pace. But if you feel that there are some questions which are taking too much of your time, you should have an understanding, or you should be able to gauge when to skip those questions. Self-awareness is key. In your mock tests, you should know what is eating your time the most, and then accordingly strategizing your preparation. Because for not all of you, same set of questions will be more time consuming. For some, maybe it's the GK, for some, maybe it's the critical reasoning. Within the critical reasoning, there could be certain subset of questions which are taking more of your time. So you must know what kind of questions are taking more of your time, and then accordingly tailoring a strategy which addresses those specific questions. What type of questions do you end up spending the most time on? Is it the critical reasoning questions? Is it English? Is it general knowledge? And why do you spend the most time on them? I want to talk about this a little bit now. So many times the reason why people tend to spend more time on them is because inability to understand the question. Maybe they do not understand the specific type of that question. For example, a very usual question that students don't understand is, which of the following, if true, is most likely going to weaken the author's argument? So a lot of students tend to get these questions wrong because they're not able to understand what this question is asking them to do. So that's why in these kind of questions, the difficulty you're facing is the inability to understand. So we need to address this part of that question. Sometimes they're confused between options, which means that it leads to overthinking or underthinking and these sort of issues. So you must know exactly what the problem is. And then we can accordingly, in our sessions, we'll also discuss all of these things with you. We'll discuss with you how to deal with specific critical reasoning questions and how to understand them. And we'll also discuss, if you're confused between options, then what you should do, how to deal with very closely worded options, and how to find out the right answer in those. Now the last one, which is RC tips. In our previous session, which must be worded something like reading comprehension strategies for part A, some of those time management tips I've shared in that session as well, and I'll cover some of them in this session as well. The first is that you go through skimming, which is not focusing on each and every word of the passage. Because if you focus on each and every word, it may take more time. Skimming basically means if I were to focus only on specific keywords of that passage, and through those keywords I'll take out as much as I can, then I'll effectively save some time. Because if you were to read each and every single line and word, that may take more of your time. So that is basically skimming, going through the passage at a quicker speed without being bogged down by the meaning of each and every word. We only need to know the main idea, argument and theme. If you want to know more what the skimming looks like, I would urge you to go back to that video of reading comprehension passages for part A, which must be within this playlist that is provided to you by NLTI. Do not analyze the passage, only understand it. You need not try to read through the passage, or you need not analyze a passage. That's not your job. Just simply understand what is given where in the passage. If you know what is where, then you can read a question and then go back to that part of the passage and then assure yourself that this is the right answer. So that's why avoid analyzing a passage. Do not get bogged down into every single detail of it. Only focus on the parts of the passage which are important enough to answer a question. That's all. If you don't understand the meaning of some sentence in the passage, do not get stuck with it. Perhaps look at whatever the surrounding sentences are or what overall the passage is saying, and then try to gauge the meaning of it, or move on to the next one. You need not get stuck with it. That's why one of the most important advice I can give you from this session is do not get stuck with any specific portion of this passage or of any question at any given moment. Highlight relevant portions, keep a track of important information by highlighting. Saves you time, because then if your question asks you something and if you've already highlighted it, you can just go back to it. Dealing with tricky options, we'll have a whole session dedicated to this, but a very quick primer to it is that getting smart with elimination technique and a lot of practice, of course. But how to get smart with elimination technique, how to deal with closely worded options, we'll discuss with you in one of our sessions, which will probably word it as something like how to deal with tricky options or how to engage with very closely worded options. So anyways, this was a very quick primer into how you deal with time management in part A and how you can perhaps save as much time as possible while you're doing with your part A. So thank you all for watching this video, and I hope this was helpful for your preparation in some ways. Stay tuned for the rest of the videos.